Good evening and thank you for joining us. The Thunder Bay District Health Unit confirmed 5 new cases of COVID-19 today. That brings the total number of cases to 18 within the region it serves. Of the 5 latest cases, 4 are located within Thunder Bay and the surrounding area. 1 man in his 20s and 3 women, 1 in her 20s, 1 in her 30s, and another in her 60s, were all exposed through close contact with another person who had already contracted the virus. All 4 are now self-isolating. The 5th new case announced today is listed only as coming from a First Nation community. It's still unknown how the man in his 40s was exposed. He's also self-isolating. As of this afternoon, 526 people had been tested for COVID-19. 434 of those tests have come back negative, while the results of 79 others are still pending. 3 cases are now listed as resolved. Meanwhile, the health unit has launched a new phone line in consultation with the Thunder Bay Police and the OPP to report COVID-19 violations. Members of the public who believe non-essential businesses have remained open despite government orders or believe individuals aren't following proper physical distancing or quarantine requirements are invited to call 807-625-5900 or toll free at 1-888-294-6630. The Thunder Bay Regional Health Sciences Center is now one step closer to fulfilling their promise of being able to do their own in-house testing for COVID-19. The hospital has received the hardware it needs to perform on-site analysis of COVID-19 swabs. However, reagents, which are chemicals needed in the lab to confirm the presence of the virus in a swab, are still on order from a supplier in the U.S. The hospital's COVID-19 incident manager, Dr. Stuart Kennedy, says when at full testing capacity, they could be administering around 350 tests a day with a turnaround rate of 2 to 4 hours. Kennedy also says there will be some testing coming for asymptomatic members of the community.
We're not going to wait until we get our test kits here to actually look at some random sampling to see what type of community spread is there. We're actually getting some medical directives today and tomorrow to begin what we call surveillance testing of a selected group of the population, not a large group right now because we still have to preserve our swabs for the sick and our healthcare workers, but we're looking at doing that over the next 2 or 3 days.
The target for implementing the local testing for COVID-19 remains toward the end of next week. For now, Kennedy is encouraged that the turnaround for test results sent to Toronto has gone from 5 to 10 days to just 2 to 3. And some disturbing news from Doug Ford today. The Premier says the province has just a week's worth of personal protective equipment for healthcare workers, and Ford says restrictions at the U.S. border are to blame. Colin DeMello reports.
It's some of the most critical equipment needed on the front lines of the COVID-19 fight. But getting personal protective equipment right now has presented a challenge.
It is really a wild west when it comes to buying medical supplies right now.
The North American battle over masks stems from an order by U.S. President Donald Trump last week, which prevents some manufacturers of N95 respirators from shipping them north of the border. Immediately, it impacted a shipment of face masks destined for Ontario hospitals.
We had 3 million masks that were stopped by U.S. officials coming out of 3M in South Dakota.
With the shipment stalled, the Deputy Prime Minister and the Premier tag-teamed, calling representatives of the Trump administration with a not-so-subtle warning.
Both countries would lose out if hurdles were to be put in the way of that flow of healthcare support between our two countries.
The Premier says the tactic paid off.
I just was briefed not long ago saying that we were able to get 500,000 N95 masks moving forward. That should be released today and coming into Ontario.
The Premier says the province is in desperate need of those supplies. Ontario hospitals are under tremendous pressure as the surge approaches and the stockpile runs low.
Surgical masks, the level 2 masks, the N95s, the gowns, surgical gowns. The real tough ones to get are the level 2 surgical masks and the N95 masks.
And without a constant infusion of new equipment, the Premier says the province might start looking into recycling masks.
I'll just give you an idea what Quebec is doing right now. they're sanitizing and reusing the masks. They're reusing them 4 or 5 times. We aren't at that point yet. We're thinking about, but we haven't done it yet.
It's another drastic move in these unprecedented times.
Colin DeMello, CTV News.
For the last couple of weeks, cases of COVID-19 have been localized in larger communities here in the Northwest, but now what many previously feared has become a reality. A remote Northern First Nation has reported its first case of the virus. The Sioux Lookout First Nations Health Authorities says the individual lives on the Edmonton First Nation. The person's age, condition, or how they contracted the virus was not provided. The organization is also voicing concerns on how the severity of the virus could spread within the community, as there are limited resources as well as issues with overcrowding. Edmonton First Nation is located 300 kilometers north of Thunder Bay. Tonight, we're kicking off what we hope will be a recurring feature here on the News Hour during the COVID-19 pandemic. Mayor Bill Morrow has graciously agreed to join us to make regular addresses to the community with updates on developments of interest. Today, he's highlighting the importance of physical distancing, especially now that the virus has arrived in Thunder Bay. He also touches on the capacity of hospitals across the Northwest to deal with COVID-19.
Thanks for being here and giving me an opportunity to speak to the community. We know now, as we've known for some time, inevitably that the virus is here in Thunder Bay. There are a number of cases that have been identified in Thunder Bay and in the region, and that's why for a significant period of time, just about everybody that you talk to has been reinforcing the message to the community regarding social distancing. We know the virus doesn't move on its own. We know we move it, and if we stay strong when it comes to physical distancing and respecting that, all of us have a significant role to play into containing community spread. It's us that can do this. It's the tool that we have to protect people's illness and actually to prevent death. So it's very serious. It's here now. We've been talking to people about this for quite some time, so please take very seriously issues related to physical distancing. Respect those people that have underlying health conditions and seniors who are more susceptible to this virus. Even if you don't feel unwell, you could potentially be spreading the virus. In that context, I've always been concerned about regional healthcare capacity. It's why a while back I reached out to regional mayors in Northwestern Ontario, asking them to work with the province and healthcare providers within their local communities to see what they can do to buff up as best they can their local capacity, because we know as a regional hospital, if the region is unable to meet their need, then we know that that need will come to Thunder Bay Regional. We're of course very concerned with our frontline healthcare workers, and so for that reason, all of us are in this together. There's common cause. We'll continue to work regionally as well as locally. Please be smart, Thunder Bay. Take this seriously if you haven't already. Stay safe and stay well.
Bill Morrow will rejoin us with another mayor's message on Wednesday. Well, it's back to school for millions of students across Ontario today. The province has rolled out its online learning program after announcing schools will remain closed until May 4th. The Lakehead School Board says it's well equipped and prepared for the changes. Cole Promain has the details.
School boards across Ontario have begun providing their online curriculums to students. The new learning plan will see teachers working with their students from kindergarten to grade 12 over the internet. They will do this with both live and pre-recorded sessions. While there are a handful of issues that have arisen with the changes, Lakehead School Board Superintendent Michelle Probazanski says that they have already taken steps to address some of them.
I think the main situation that we're dealing with is providing equity of outcomes and access. And so there are some students who don't have devices. So we surveyed as well as worked through our administrators and teachers to make sure this week that everyone has a device who needs it. So we are loaning out our board devices. That will start occurring tomorrow. And access to internet is another difficult problem that we're looking through, working with community partners to see what we can do to tackle that.
Where possible, parents, many of whom are also working from home, will need to help their younger children gain access to and use these features. While there are some concerns, Probazanski says feedback from the parents has been quite positive.
I think really we've had some positive feedback. People are ready to go. They want their children working and continuing the learning. And so there may be concerns about paper packages coming home for those without internet, and we've addressed those concerns. Anything that we're putting in place to provide equity of access has been cleared by the public health unit.
Another thing the Lakehead School Board has started to do is work with Roots to Harvest and deliver school supplies when they make their weekly food drop-offs. Cole Promain, TBT News.
Despite pleas from city officials, some residents just apparently haven't gotten the message about what can and what can't be flushed down the toilet, leading to more sewer issues for the city. Today on Parkway Drive in Northwood, city crews were called to a report of flooding in a basement. They soon discovered that the sewage system in the area was blocked by wipes and other products that aren't meant to be flushed. Although some packages for wipes claim they are flushable, city officials are urging residents not to do so. Maggie and Doug Colbin live on Parkway and made the call to the city. They say they're frustrated because this problem is just so avoidable.
Like, look at the situation that we are in right now. I mean, we have followed every single precaution. We've done what has been asked, but yet people just don't seem to realize. And I mean, we saw the message in the newspaper, we saw it on the news. Like, I don't know what else needs to be said for people to understand. This is something we can prevent.
Now, the Colbins acted quickly enough to avoid a major flood, but they hope they don't have to deal with this again. With much of the country being ordered to stay home unless they need the essentials, one type of business is in charge of making sure those essentials get to their correct destination. Truck drivers are still hauling despite a number of obstacles that make their workday much more difficult. Corey Nordstrom reports.
Companies out there are doing good to protect their companies, but they're expecting us to go about business like normal, and it's not normal.
While many businesses are shuttered due to the COVID-19 pandemic, truck drivers across the country remain on the road, delivering their essential service. But those drivers have had their usual routines greatly affected. Restaurant closures and the switch to a drive-through only method doesn't apply to trucks of their size, and the lack of open businesses means far fewer restrooms available for the drivers.
The guys that are hauling freight, sitting at docks for 6 hours, no bathrooms, getting stuck someplace, it becomes a nightmare because you're losing time that you never get back.
Driving truck is a job that can be isolating by nature, but not having those daily interactions at a restaurant can make the long rides seem even longer.
You're by yourself in the truck, and sometimes when you get to a restaurant, there's somebody else to talk to, and that helps you during your day.
At the end of the day, you used to be able to walk across the parking lot, talk with a driver that you've never seen before, and actually sit down and have dinner with him, 3 other people, just have a dinner and then get up and go your own ways. I mean, it's not happening anymore.
And people across the country and world are taking note of how crucial the trucking business is for society to function in its usual manner. With the hashtag #ThankATrucker growing in popularity, something Hool and other truck drivers are grateful for.
I've seen it on social media. Friends of mine have sent me some of the posts that people are putting on, and we do appreciate it quite a bit.
You know what would happen if the truck shut down? Within 3 days, you'd be real sad, because there'd be no food, there'd be no gas, there'd be no clothes. All the things you take for granted that are brought by a truck won't happen.
The drivers say they hope the government will get involved and make sure they have access to the amenities they need to keep deliveries rolling. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
Police continue to investigate the circumstances following a series of collisions in the Victoriaville area on Saturday that left one person dead. Police were originally called to the Arthur Street and Syndicate Avenue area just before 6 in the evening following reports of a serious collision. Shortly after, police located a blue car inside the Victoriaville Parkade with a deceased male inside. He was later identified as a 62-year-old Thunder Bay man. Police learned the car was seen traveling northbound on Syndicate when it collided with a truck parked in the CP rail yard. Shortly after, the same vehicle collided with another at the Arthur Street intersection. The car was also involved in several other collisions before coming to a stop in the parkade. No other injuries were reported, and the investigation continues. A large-scale search effort was launched last night after 2 rescue flares were spotted in the water beyond the Thunder Bay breakwall. Fire rescue personnel were alerted to the situation around 10:30 Sunday night, and that led to units from Thunder Bay Police, the OPP, and the Canadian Coast Guard all heading to the Shipyard Road area to investigate it. A C-130 Rescue Hercules was also dispatched from Winnipeg to the search area, but despite several passes using infrared technology, no one was found to be in distress. Emergency officials are stressing that rescue flares should only be used in an emergency and say that improper use can expose emergency personnel to unnecessary risk. With churches closed across the province due to the pandemic, St. Paul's Anglican Church found a unique way for parishioners to kick off Holy Week by providing drive-by blessings. On Saturday and Sunday, hundreds of people drove, rode their bike, and walked to the front of the church on Ridgeway Street. Drivers lowered their car windows with no one leaving the vehicle to be blessed by Archdeacon Deborah Kraft. Drivers then received a palm cross using a makeshift fishing rod to practice social distancing before going on their way. Kraft says she's received nothing but positive reactions from the community.
People are coming by with big smiles and tears. They're feeling so touched and moved. They're telling us that they have such gratitude in their hearts that we're doing this, and they feel that this is just a wonderful way for them to get through this, that to have a spiritual blessing and to receive one of our palm crosses is just something that's really, really important to them.
Although closed, many see churches as an essential service. Since closing, many churches in the region have live streamed their services to help people stay connected with their congregations. Across the globe, people have been expressing their appreciation for all the efforts of frontline medical staff. And behind the Thunder Bay Regional Health Sciences Center, city residents have begun doing the same. Dozens of heart-shaped notes have been placed along the River Terrace walkway just behind the hospital on South Creek Street. The messages show support and gratitude to the countless healthcare workers who continue to go to work in these trying times. Among the messages, there are drawings, people giving thanks, and expressions of hope. It's not certain who began the trend, but it's an uplifting message for all the Thunder Bay's healthcare workers.
All right, Fiona, what a way to start the work week.